The woman had given her bed to the Apache warrior, thinking it was nothing more than an act of compassion. But on that freezing dawn, when he woke up gasping and spoke a name she hadn't heard since childhood, her body simply froze as if the past had just found her in the dark. And when the warrior's standing guard saw her expression change, a heavy silence settled over the camp, because everyone understood that this was no ordinary encounter, but the beginning of something no one was prepared to face. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The wind screamed through the cracks in the wagon, a cold, lonely sound. Sarah Miller pulled her thin shawl tighter and blew out her candle. Another day done. As she moved to her bed, a different sound cut through the wind. Not an animal, a low, pained groan. She froze, listening. Nothing. Just the wind again. She was about to turn away when she heard it once more, a human sound, full of hurt. Her hand found the heavy iron poker by the stove. She lit her lantern with the other, her fingers clumsy with cold. The light shook as she pushed her wagon door open against the wind. "Who's there?" No answer. She stepped down, the frozen ground biting through her boots. The lantern light jumped over the dark shapes of other wagons, all quiet. Then it found him. A man, curled on the ground near the edge of the camp where the desert began. He was not from Willow Creek. His clothes were dark leather and he had long black hair, an Apache. A deep, ugly wound on his temple shone wet in the lamplight. His eyes were closed. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Every story, every warning shouted in her head. Her feet wanted to run back, to bolt her door, to forget what she saw. The man groaned again. His hand twitched against the cold dirt. She did not run. She knelt. She saw his face, not much older than her own, tight with pain. She saw the blood on the ground, black in the yellow light. "Can you hear me?" she whispered. His eyes opened a little, dark, confused eyes. He tried to speak, but only a rough sound came out. "You're hurt," Sarah said, more to herself than to him. She looked back at the sleeping camp. If she called for help, what would happen? Joseph Briggs or the others? They would not bring him water. They would bring a rope or a rifle. The man's eyes closed. He was fading. Making a decision felt like jumping off a cliff. She hooked her hands under his arms. He was heavy, a dead weight. "You have to help," she grunted, pulling. "Try." Some sense must have reached him. He pushed with one leg just enough. She dragged him step by difficult step toward her wagon. The wind covered the sound of her struggle. She got him to the steps. "Now," she breathed, her muscles burning. She half pushed, half lifted him up and through the small door. He collapsed onto her floor. Quickly, she shut the door and dropped the latch. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had just brought the enemy into her home. She turned the lantern up. In the full light, he looked worse. His lips were cracked. The wound on his head needed cleaning. Her bed, a narrow cot with a thin quilt, was the only soft place. "This is foolish," she said to the quiet wagon. But her hands were already moving. She pulled the quilt back. She dragged the man the last few feet and rolled him onto her bed. He did not resist. She fetched water and a clean cloth. She sat on the edge of the bed and began to wipe the dirt and blood from his face. Her mother had done this for her when she was sick. The memory was a sharp ache in her chest. As she worked, the man's eyes opened again. This time, awareness was in them. Fear. He tried to sit up. "No," Sarah said, pressing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You will make it worse. Lie still." He stared at her, his breathing fast. He looked at her hands, her face, the small wagon around them. He did not understand. "You are safe here," she said, though she knew it was a lie. He was not safe. She was not safe. "Drink." She held a cup of water to his lips. He drank, slowly at first, then gulping it down. "More?" she asked. He gave a small nod. She fetched more water. When he finished, he sank back into the pillow, his eyes on the wagon ceiling. "Taza," he said, his voice a dry rustle. "What?" He looked at her. "My name, it is Taza." Sarah nodded. "I am Sarah." A long silence hung between them, filled only by the wind outside. He was an Apache warrior in her bed. She was a settler woman who should hate him. The world had turned upside down. "Why?" he finally asked. The word was heavy. Sarah looked at her hands, calloused and plain. She did not have a good answer. "Because you were on the ground," she said. It was the only truth she had. She stood and went to the small stove. She stirred the embers and added a piece of wood. The wagon began to feel a little warmer. "The others in this camp," Taza said slowly, "they do not know I am here." It was not a question. "No," Sarah said, "they do not. If they find me—" "I know," she interrupted, not wanting to hear the end of that sentence. She knew very well what would happen. She pulled a blanket from a chest and wrapped it around herself. She would sleep on the floor tonight. She sat with her back against a trunk, watching him. The fear was a cold stone in her stomach, but under it was something else. For the first time in 12 years, she was not alone in this wagon at night. Just before dawn, she heard voices outside. 2 men, talking low, Joseph Briggs's loud boom and another settler. "Saw prints out near the perimeter, Joseph. Not sure. Could be nothing." "Could be something," Joseph's voice answered, close now, right outside her wagon. "We check everything. I'll look around here." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She saw Taza's eyes snap open. He heard it too. Joseph's heavy boots crunched on the frozen earth, moving slowly around his small home. Sarah held her breath, her hand over her own mouth. The footsteps stopped right by her door. The heavy boots outside her wagon moved on, crunching away into the cold morning. Sarah let out the breath she was holding. Taza closed his eyes, his body relaxing a fraction. The danger had passed for now. For 2 days, Sarah lived in a silent world of fear and care. She told her Aunt Martha she was feeling sick and stayed in her wagon. She shared her small amount of food with Taza. She gave him water and changed the bandage on his head. He slept for long hours, his sleep fitful and hot with fever. Sarah sat on the floor, her back against the trunk, and watched him. She sewed to keep her hands busy, but her eyes kept going to the man in her bed. He was an Apache. Everything she had been taught said he was a killer, but the man she saw was just hurt. He was quiet. He never complained. On the morning of the 3rd day, the fever got worse. Taza began to shake. His skin was hot and damp. He mumbled words in a language Sarah did not know. His head turned left and right on the pillow. "No," he muttered in English. "Do not." "The canyon." Sarah wet a fresh cloth and placed it on his forehead. "Shh," she said, like she was soothing a child. "You are safe." But he was not safe in his mind. He was somewhere else, somewhere terrible. His breathing became fast and ragged. His hands gripped the blanket. "The boy," he gasped. "The boy is—" He fell silent for a moment. Then his whole body went stiff. His eyes flew open, but he was not seeing the wagon ceiling. He was seeing a memory. He screamed. It was a raw, pained sound that filled the small space, and with it, one word, clear and sharp as broken glass. "Charlie?" Sarah dropped the cloth. The world shrank to that single word. The air left her lungs. She could not move. Charlie. That name was a buried part of her heart. It was her little brother's name, the brother she lost 12 years ago, the brother whose body was never found. Outside, the sound of the scream had been heard. 2 men, settlers standing guard at the camp's edge, ran toward her wagon. Their footsteps thudded close. "Sarah?" one of them shouted, banging a fist on her door. "What in heaven's name was that? Are you hurt?" Sarah could not speak. She stared at Taza, who was now blinking, coming out of the dream. He looked confused, then scared as he remembered where he was. Then he saw her face. He saw the shock, the pale whiteness of her skin. The door rattled. "Sarah Miller, open this door." She forced herself to move. She stood on legs that felt like water. She unlatched the door and opened it just a crack, hiding the inside of the wagon with her body. The 2 guards, Thomas and Ben, peered in, their eyes trying to see past her. "I heard a yell," Thomas said. "Sounded like a man." "A bad dream," Sarah said, her voice thin. "I had a bad dream. I cried out. I am sorry I scared you." The men did not look convinced. Ben's eyes narrowed. He looked past Sarah's shoulder. Taza was lying still, but the blanket was over his chest, not his face. He did not look like a woman. "Who is in there with you, Sarah?" Ben asked quietly. "No one," she said too quickly. A terrible silence hung in the cold air. Thomas and Ben looked at each other. They had heard a man's voice shout a name. They saw Sarah's terrified eyes. Something was very wrong. "Step aside, Sarah," Thomas said, his voice gentle but firm. Before she could stop them, Thomas put a hand on the door and pushed it open wider. The morning light fell across the bed, across Taza's face. Both guards froze. Their hands went to their rifles. Apache, Ben breathed, the word a curse. Taza did not move. He looked from the guards to Sarah's stricken face. He understood what had happened. He had spoken the secret name in his sleep, and she had heard it. "Get away from the wagon, Sarah," Thomas ordered, lifting his rifle. "No," Sarah said, finding her voice. She stepped back, putting herself between the men in the bed. "Don't you see? He is hurt. He is no threat. He is an Apache in our camp," Ben shouted. "After all we lost, have you lost your mind?" "He said a name," Thomas said, his eyes locked on Sarah. "We heard it clear. Charlie." "Why did he say that name, Sarah?" Sarah's mouth was dry. She could not answer. Taza slowly sat up in the bed. He was weak, but his gaze was clear. He looked at the two armed settlers, then at Sarah, who was protecting him. A deep sadness filled his eyes. "The fever," Taza said, his voice rough. "It was just a dream. The name meant nothing. But it was too late." Sarah turned to look at him. All the color was gone from her face. Her eyes were wide with a pain so old and deep it shook her. "That name," she whispered, just to him. "Charlie, that was my brother's name." The guards shifted, unsure. They saw the connection pass between the Apache and the woman. A hidden thing was now out in the open, and it scared them more than a rifle. "You two," Thomas said, pointing at Taza. "Do not move. Ben, go get Joseph. Go now." Ben ran, his boots pounding on the hard earth toward the center of the camp. Sarah did not hear the order. She took a step closer to the bed, her eyes never leaving Taza's. "Why did you say that name?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You tell me right now, why did you say Charlie?" The silence in the wagon was heavy. Sarah stood waiting for an answer, her eyes locked on Taza. The two guards were still there, rifles ready, but they were waiting too. They all heard the running footsteps coming back. Taza looked at Sarah's face. He saw the desperate hope there, mixed with terrible fear. He looked at the guards and the weapons. He knew Joseph Briggs was coming. He knew what happened to captured Apache warriors. He had a choice. He could keep silent and die with the secret, or he could speak a truth that would change everything. He took a slow breath. "The story you know is wrong," he said, his voice low but clear. "What?" Sarah whispered. "The raid, 12 years ago. The story your people tell." "The Apache attacked our homestead," Sarah said, the words automatic. "They killed my mother and father. They took my brother." Taza shook his head. "No, that was not the first thing. 4 days before that, a group of white men from many settlements, they found an Apache hunting party by the creek. The hunters had deer. They were peaceful. The white men wanted the deer. They wanted the land. They shot them all. They left the bodies." Sarah stared. "That is not true." "It is true," Taza said, his voice flat. "I was a boy. I was hiding in the rocks above. I saw it. My uncle was in that hunting party." One of the guards, Thomas, shifted his weight. "Lies. Apache lies to excuse their savagery." "What is your savagery?" Taza asked, looking at the man. "To kill men gathering food for their children? Our chief's son was among the dead. Our hearts were broken. Our anger was a fire." Sarah felt the ground under her seem to tilt. "So the raid on my home was an answer," Taza said, turning his dark eyes back to her. "A grief-stricken answer. It was war, not a random act. It was terrible, but it was not the first strike. Your people struck first." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Her whole life, her pain, was built on a story of being innocent victims of mindless evil. Now this man said it was not simple. Now he said her people had started it. "My family," she said, her voice breaking. "They were good people. They were not fighters." "I know," Taza said, and he sounded truly sad. "I was there that day at the homestead raid. I was a boy with a bow, full of a boy's anger." Sarah stepped back, hitting the wall of the wagon. "You were there?" "I was." The horror of it washed over her. This man in her bed, this man she had saved, had been part of the attack that destroyed her life. Her stomach twisted. "Then you saw?" She could not finish. "I saw a man and a woman try to protect their wagon," Taza said, each word costing him. "I saw them fall, and I saw a small boy. He was hiding under the wagon. He was crying. His face was dirty. His name was called by the woman before she fell. She called Charlie." A sob choked in Sarah's throat. She covered her mouth with her hand. A warrior moved toward the boy to finish it. Taza continued, his gaze distant, seeing the memory. But an elder stopped him. The elder's name was Ilan. He pushed the warrior aside. He looked at the crying boy, not as an enemy, but as a child. He picked him up. He said, "This one is not for death. This one is for life." He took the boy and rode away into the smoke. The wagon was utterly silent. The guards had lowered their rifles a little, listening, confusion on their faces. Sarah's mind was spinning. He took him? He took Charlie? Alive? Yes. Where? The word was a desperate plea. Where did he take him? To our band, to raise him as his own, to protect him from more fighting, to give him a new life. So he is alive? Sarah's voice was so full of hope it was painful to hear. "My brother is alive?" Taza looked at her, and in his eyes was a warning. "The boy you knew as Charlie is alive. He is a man now. He has a new name. He knows only the life of our people. This truth, it is a danger, to him, to my people, to you." Just then, the wagon door was flung open. Joseph Briggs filled the doorway, his face red with anger. Ben stood behind him. "What is this talk?" Joseph roared, his eyes landing on Taza. "You have one of them in here, and you're listening to his poison?" He raised his rifle, pointing it straight at Taza's heart. "Joseph, no!" Sarah screamed, throwing herself in front of the bed again. "Get out of the way, Sarah! This ends now. You pull that trigger, and you kill the only person who knows where my brother is," Sarah shouted, the words tearing out of her. Joseph froze, the rifle still aimed. "What nonsense is this?" "It's not nonsense," Thomas the guard said quietly. "He's been telling a story, Joseph, a different story about the old raid. He says the boy Charlie was taken alive." Joseph's eyes darted from Sarah's fierce face to Taza's calm one. He saw it was not a trick. His anger twisted into something uglier, more suspicious. "A story to save his skin, and you believe it?" He spat on the wagon floor. "He'll say anything. The only truth is that thing is an Apache, and he's in our camp. That's all I need to know." Sarah looked from Joseph's hardened face back to Taza. The fragile truth was out. It was more dangerous than she ever imagined, and now it was hers to carry. Joseph's rifle did not waver. His finger stayed on the trigger. The air in the wagon was tight enough to snap. "My brother is alive," Sarah said again, her voice quieter now but solid as stone. "This man saw him taken. He was saved, Joseph, not killed." Joseph's eyes were hard chips of flint. "Even if that fairy tale is true, which it ain't, what does it matter now? 12 years is 12 years. A boy raised by wolves becomes a wolf." He glared at Taza. "He's filling your head with pretty lies to stop a bullet." "Then let him prove it," Sarah shot back. "Let him take me to him. If he is lying, you will know. If he is telling the truth, I get my brother back." A harsh laugh burst from Joseph. "Take you to him? Into an Apache camp? You are sick in the head, girl. This is exactly what they want. They will kill you the moment you are out of sight of this camp." He finally lowered his rifle, but his anger did not fade. He pointed a thick finger at Taza. "He does not leave this wagon. He is our prisoner now. And you, Sarah, you will not go anywhere near him. You have brought a spy into our home." "He was dying on the ground," Sarah cried. "And you should have let him," Joseph roared. He turned to the two guards. "Thomas, Ben, you stand watch outside this wagon. No one goes in or out without my say. We will decide what to do with this Apache at the meeting tonight." He shoved past Sarah and stomped out of the wagon, Ben following close behind. Thomas lingered for a moment. He looked at Sarah with a mix of pity and worry, then stepped outside, closing the door. The latch fell into place. They were locked in. Sarah stood trembling, her back to Taza. She could hear his steady, quiet breathing behind her. "He is wrong," she said, more to herself than to him. "My brother is not a wolf." "Your brother is a man who knows nothing of you," Taza said from the bed. "He knows nothing of this life. He is called Kovat. It means oak. He is strong. He is a good hunter. He believes Elder Elon is his grandfather. Each word was a tiny hammer, shaping a new, impossible picture in Sarah's mind. Her little Charlie, who loved to chase grasshoppers, was now a hunter named Kovat. He lived a whole life without her. She turned around. "You have seen him? Recently?" Taza nodded. "I see him every day. We live in the same band. He is like a younger brother to me." The pain of that was so strange and sharp it took her breath away. This stranger had shared years with her brother while she had only a ghost. "All this time," she whispered, sinking onto her trunk. "Everyone told me he was dead. My aunt, the preacher, everyone. They said it was a kindness to believe he did not suffer. They were all wrong. They either lied or they did not know. The elder, Elon, kept the secret to protect him," Taza said, "and to protect my people. If your settlers knew we raised a white boy as our own, they would see it as a theft. They would use it as reason for more war." Sarah's head shot up. "But it was a rescue." "Your people will not see it that way. My people also hold the secret close. If it is known that Elon spared a settler child on a day of war, some might call it weakness. It is a secret that hurts no one until it is told." "It hurt me," Sarah's voice broke. "It hurt me every single day for 12 years. I cried for a dead boy who was eating and sleeping and laughing under the same sun." For the first time, Taza looked away, unable to hold her gaze. He studied his own hands. "I know." A long quiet filled the space. The anger slowly drained from Sarah, leaving a cold, clear purpose behind. "I have to see him," she said. "It is not safe." "I do not care. Joseph will not let you leave." "Then I will go when he is not looking." Taza shook his head. "It is a hard journey. 2 days on foot into the hills. You do not know the way. You would die in the desert." Sarah stood up. She walked to the small window and peered through the crack between the shutters. She could see the backs of Thomas and Ben standing guard a few feet away. She saw Joseph marching toward the center of the camp, stopping to talk to a group of men. He was waving his arms. The men were nodding. "Then you will take me," she said, not looking back at Taza. "My duty is to my people. Taking you there brings danger to them." "You owe me a life," Sarah said, turning to face him. Her hazel eyes were dry and fierce. "I pulled you from the cold. I gave you my bed. I kept you alive. You can pay that debt. You can take me to my brother." Taza closed his eyes. A war was happening inside him. She could see it on his face. Loyalty against honor, duty against debt. Outside, Joseph's voice carried on the wind, loud and angry. "Are we going to wait for them to strike again? Or are we going to finish what was started 12 years ago?" A rumble of agreement came from the men. Sarah looked at Taza. "Do you hear that? Joseph is not planning to keep you prisoner for long. He is planning an attack on your camp, on my brother. If you take me, maybe I can stop it. Maybe I can get to him before the guns start." Taza's eyes opened. He looked at the determined woman in front of him. He looked at the walls of the wagon that were now his cage. He thought of Kovat, who was like a brother, and the elder Elon, who he was sworn to obey. He gave one slow, slight nod. "When the night is deepest," he said, his voice barely a sound. "When the guards are tired and the camp sleeps, then we go." Sarah finally let herself breathe. For the first time in 12 years, a real living hope began to push through the cracks in her heart. She was going to find Charlie. The night was cold and black, the only light coming from a fire in the center of Willow Creek. Sarah sat on the floor of her wagon, her ear pressed to a thin gap in the wall. She could hear everything. Joseph Briggs's voice boomed over the crackling flames. "She gave him her own bed," Joseph shouted. "She fed him. She hid an Apache warrior under our noses." A murmur of shock and anger rippled through the gathered settlers. "And that's not the worst of it," Joseph continued. "Now he's spun some wild tale to save his neck. Says the Miller boy wasn't killed. Says they raised him as their own." "That's impossible," a woman's voice said. "We would have known." "Would we?" Joseph countered. "It's the perfect trick. It plays on our grief. It makes us doubt. And while we're doubting, they are watching us, planning for us. That wounded scout didn't just appear. He was studying our camp, and Sarah Miller helped him. Sarah closed her eyes, a hot shame washing over her. It wasn't true. None of it was true. But she heard the people believe it. "What do we do, Joseph?" a man asked. It sounded like Ben, the guard. "We do what we should have done a long time ago," Joseph said, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. "We take the fight to them. We know they camp in the Redstone Hills. We are not weak. We have rifles. We have numbers. We go there, and we make sure they never threaten our families again." "An attack?" Thomas's voice now, cautious. "That's a big step, Joseph. We have women and children here." "And what protects them?" Joseph fired back. "Waiting, hoping. My father waited. He hoped. And he died with an Apache arrow in his chest. I will not let that happen to my son, or to any of your children." There was a heavy silence. Sarah could imagine the men looking at each other, thinking of their own families, their own fears. "I'm with Joseph," Ben said finally. "I'm tired of looking over my shoulder." "Me too," another voice added. "We need to prepare," Joseph said, a note of triumph in his voice. "We gather all the guns and all the bullets. We pack food for 3 days. We leave at first light 2 days from now. We move fast and we strike hard. We end this." The meeting broke up into smaller, eager conversations. The sound of it was like a hive buzzing, full of deadly purpose. Sarah pulled away from the wall. Her heart was pounding so hard it hurt. 2 days. They were going to attack in 2 days. They were going to ride into the hills to kill the Apache band, to kill Taza's people, to kill Charlie. The thought was a lightning bolt of pure terror. She scrambled over to where Taza sat in the dark. He had heard it all too. "You heard?" she whispered, her voice frantic. "I heard," he said. His face was calm, but his hands were fists. "They are coming. In 2 days. We have to leave tonight. Now." Taza shook his head. "The guards are still there. They are awake and talking now. We must wait for the deepest sleep just before the sky gets light. It is the only time. But we need to go now. We have to warn your people. If we run now, they will see us. They will shoot us. Or they will follow us straight to my camp. That would be worse." He looked at her, his eyes serious. "We must be quiet as shadows. We must leave no trail. To warn my people, we must first get there alive." Sarah hugged her knees to her chest. The weight was agony. Every minute that passed was a minute closer to Joseph's mob riding out. She thought of Charlie, Kovat, sleeping peacefully in an Apache camp, unaware that men from his first life were coming to destroy his second one. After what felt like forever, the camp outside grew truly quiet. The fire died to embers. The only sounds were the wind and the soft snore of one of the guards. Taza moved. He did not stand. He slid off the bed and onto the floor, silent as smoke. He pointed to the back of the wagon, opposite the door. Sarah nodded. They had loosened 3 small boards there earlier, just enough to squeeze through. Taza went first, slipping through the narrow gap and dropping to the ground without a sound. Sarah followed, passing a small cloth bundle of food and a water skin out to him. She squeezed through, her dress catching on a nail. She froze, her breath held. One of the guards, Thomas, muttered in his sleep and turned over. Taza's hand found hers in the dark. He pulled her gently. They crouched low, moving away from the wagon, keeping it between them and the sleeping guards. Step by careful step, they moved into the open desert, toward the dark shape of the hills. They were 100 yards from the camp when a dog barked, a sharp sound in the silent night. From behind them, a voice shouted, "Hey, who's there?" A lantern flared to life back at Sarah's wagon. "Run," Taza said, and they ran. The sound of the shout and the sudden lantern light sent a jolt of pure fear through Sarah's legs. She ran faster than she ever had, the rough ground trying to trip her. Taza was just ahead, a dark shape moving without sound. "Stop! Stop or I'll shoot!" The voice was Thomas's. It was followed by the terrible click of a rifle hammer being pulled back. Taza did not stop. He grabbed Sarah's arm and yanked her sharply to the left, behind a thick, low cactus. A second later, the night split with the bang of the rifle. Dirt kicked up where they had just been. "Come on," Taza hissed, pulling her forward again. They scrambled up a rocky slope, their hands scraping on stone. Below, they could see more lanterns moving, hear Joseph's booming voice yelling orders. "Spread out. Find them." Sarah's lungs burned. The cloth bundle of food felt heavy in her hand. She stumbled, and Taza caught her. "They cannot track us in the dark if we get far enough," he said, his voice low and urgent. "But we must keep moving. Do not look back." They ran into the deeper darkness of the hills, leaving the flat desert and the angry lights of Willow Creek behind. After a long time, when Sarah's side hurt and she could not run another step, Taza slowed. He listened. The only sounds were the wind and their own ragged breathing. "They have stopped," he said. "They will not follow into these hills at night. It is too dangerous for them." Sarah bent over, hands on her knees, gulping air. They will come at first light, with all the men." "Yes," Taza said. He looked up at the stars, judging their direction. "We have a day's walk ahead, maybe more. You are not used to this. We must go now." Sarah straightened up, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I can walk, just show me where." Taza nodded. He started walking at a steady, ground-eating pace. Sarah followed, her soft settlement boots already feeling thin on the rocky path. They walked in silence for hours. The night was very cold. Sarah's dress was not meant for this. She hugged herself, but she did not complain. As the sky began to lighten from black to gray, Taza finally stopped by a small trickle of water between rocks. "We drink here. We rest for a short time." Sarah knelt and drank from her cupped hands. The water was icy. She handed the water skin to Taza to fill. She looked at him across the small spring. In the pale morning light, he looked tired. The wound on his temple was an angry red line. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. "You said it was against your duty." Taza finished filling the skin and sealed it. He did not look at her. "You saved my life. This is a debt. My people understand debts. But you are leading me right to them, to the secret. Won't they be angry with you?" "Yes," he said simply. "Elder Elan will be angry. The others may call me a traitor, but if I do not bring you, Joseph Briggs will bring many guns. My debt to you is one thing. My duty to protect my band from an attack is another. Both paths lead me to the same place now, back to my home, to give warning." He stood up, ready to move again. "The walking will get harder now. The sun will be hot. Are you ready?" Sarah stood, her legs stiff and sore. She thought of Charlie, a boy made into a man called Kovet somewhere in these hills. She thought of Joseph's angry mob, getting their guns ready. "I am ready," she said. The sun rose, harsh and bright. The beauty of the desert hills was cruel. There was little shade. The rocks held the heat. Sarah's mouth felt full of dust. Taza never seemed to tire. He would point out a place to step to avoid a snake. He would show her a plant where they could squeeze a bitter drop of water from its root. He spoke little. In the afternoon, with the sun at its highest, Sarah's strength finally gave out. She sat down on a rock, dizzy. "I need a minute," she panted. Taza looked at the sky, then back the way they had come. Worry was on his face. "We do not have many minutes. We are being followed." Sarah's head snapped up. "What? How do you know?" "A dust cloud. Back there, far in the desert. It is small. Maybe 2 men on horses. Joseph did not wait for his whole group. He sent riders to track us." The fear came back, cold and clear. "They will find us. Not if we reach the high rocks first. Come." He offered her his hand. She took it. His grip was strong. He pulled her up and they pushed on, the path growing steeper and more broken. Sarah's world shrank to the next step, and the next, and the next. Just as the sun was beginning to sink, painting the rocks in orange and red, Taza stopped. He pointed ahead to a narrow canyon entrance, shadowed and cool. "There," he said. "Through there. My people are on the other side of this canyon." Sarah looked at the dark opening. Somewhere beyond it was the end of her search. Somewhere beyond it was the brother she had mourned for 12 years. The relief was so powerful her eyes filled with tears. A sharp crack echoed through the hills. It was not a rock falling. It was the sound of a rifle shot. A bullet hit the cliff face above them, showering them with tiny chips of stone. Sarah screamed. Taza shoved her hard, pushing her toward the cover of the canyon entrance. "Go!" he yelled. "Run into the canyon! Do not stop!" Another shot rang out. Sarah ran, the dark mouth of the canyon swallowing her whole. The canyon was dark and cool. Sarah ran until her legs gave out, collapsing behind a large boulder. She could hear Taza behind her, his breathing steady. The rifle shots had stopped. The canyon walls seemed to swallow all sound. "They will not follow in here," Taza whispered after a moment. "It is a bad place for an ambush. They will wait at the entrance or go around. We are close now. We must keep moving." Sarah pushed herself up. Her hands were scraped, her dress torn. Who was shooting? Joseph, or the men he sent? It does not matter. They know where we are going. We have no time. He led her through the twisting canyon. The path was narrow, the ground uneven. After what felt like another hour, the walls began to open up. The late afternoon sun poured into a wide, hidden valley. And there it was, a small Apache camp. Cone-shaped huts made of hide and brush were scattered near a stream. Smoke rose from cook fires. Women worked, children played. A few men looked up from making tools. It was a peaceful scene, but the peace shattered the moment they were seen. A shout went up. A man pointed. In seconds, every person in the camp stopped what they were doing. They stared at the two figures emerging from the canyon, a white woman and Taza leading her. Men reached for bows and spears. Women pulled children close. The air went from calm to tense in a single heartbeat. 3 warriors ran forward, blocking the path. They had stern faces. Their eyes were on Sarah, full of suspicion and anger. One of them spoke to Taza in their language, his tone sharp and demanding. Taza answered calmly, but his shoulders were tight. He gestured back toward the canyon, then to Sarah. The warriors did not look convinced. An old man stepped out from one of the larger huts. He moved slowly, using a walking stick. His hair was white, his face a map of deep lines. This was Elder Elan. His eyes, dark and wise, took in the scene. They settled on Taza, then on Sarah. There was no anger in his look, only a deep, sad understanding. He spoke a few quiet words. The warriors lowered their weapons, but they did not move away. Elan walked closer. "Taza," he said in English, his voice like dry leaves, "you have brought a great change to our home." "Elder," Taza said, bowing his head slightly, "I had no other path. The settlers from Willow Creek are coming, many men, with guns. They will be here in 1 day, maybe less. And this woman, she knows." Elan's gaze shifted to Sarah. "Knows what, child?" Sarah's mouth was dry. She looked at the old man who had saved a little boy. "She knows about Charlie," Taza said quietly. "I spoke his name in a fever dream. She heard it." A flicker of pain crossed Elan's ancient face. He closed his eyes for a long moment. "I see," he whispered. Just then, movement caught Sarah's eye. A young man walked out from behind a hut, holding a bow. He was looking toward the commotion, curious. He had the lean build of a hunter. His hair was lighter brown than the others, tied back. He had gray eyes. Sarah's heart stopped. The young man smiled at Taza, a friendly, open smile. "Taza, you are back, and you bring a visitor?" He walked closer, completely unaware. His smile was easy, his face handsome and young. Sarah could not breathe. She knew that smile. It was not her memory of a little boy's smile. It was her asterisk father's asterisk smile. The same curve of the lips, the same way his eyes crinkled. She had seen it every day of her childhood, in her father's face, and now it lived on the face of this Apache warrior. The young man noticed her staring. His smile faltered, replaced by polite confusion. "Why does she look at me like that?" he asked Taza. Taza said nothing. He looked at the ground. Sarah took a step forward. Her voice, when it came, was a broken thing. "Charlie?" The young man's head tilted. He laughed a little, uncomfortable. "My name is Kovet." He said it kindly, as if correcting a simple mistake. "No," Sarah whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Your name is Charlie Miller. You are my brother." The entire camp heard her. A ripple of shock went through the people. Murmurs spread like fire. Kovet's face went from confused to annoyed. "What is this joke? It is not funny." He looked at Elder Elan. "Grandfather, what is she talking about?" Elan stepped between Sarah and Kovet. His old body seemed to shield the young man. He looked at Sarah, his eyes filled with a lifetime of sorrow. "You have walked a long way, Sarah Miller," he said softly. "You have carried a heavy grief, but you must be silent now. This truth is a sharp stone. If you drop it here, it will cut everyone." He turned to Kovat, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Go to your mother's fire, Kovat. I will speak with our guests." Kovat looked from Elan's serious face to Sarah's tear-streaked one. He shook his head, angry and bewildered. "She calls me a white name. She says I am her brother. Tell her she is wrong." "Go," Elan said, his voice firm but kind. With one last troubled look at Sarah, Kovat turned and walked away, his shoulders stiff with anger and confusion. Sarah watched him go, her whole soul reaching out for him. She had found him. He was real, and he did not know her at all. Elan motioned for Sarah and Taza to follow him. "Come," he said. "We will talk, and you will tell me how much time we have before the guns arrive." Elder Elan's hut was dim and smelled of dried herbs and smoke. He motioned for Sarah and Taza to sit on woven mats. He lowered himself slowly onto a stool. For a long moment, he just looked at Sarah, his old eyes seeing every bit of her pain and hope. "You have your mother's eyes," he said quietly. Sarah's breath caught. "You knew my mother?" "I saw her for only a moment, on that terrible day. She was brave. She stood in front of the wagon where the boy hid. She loved him very much." Elan folded his thin hands in his lap. "That is why I took him. I did not see an enemy child. I saw a mother's love lying on the ground, and I saw the fruit of that love, scared and alone. How could I let hate claim him too?" Sarah wiped at her cheeks. "You saved his life." "I gave him a life," Elan corrected gently. "A new one. His old life was gone. His parents were gone. His sister was gone. He was a small boy crying in the dust. I picked him up. I held him close so he would not see the smoke. I brought him here. I gave him a new name, Kovat, for the strong oak tree that survives the storm. I raised him as my grandson. My daughter, who lost her own baby, became his mother. He has been loved every day of his life here." Sarah listened, her heart splitting in two. One half was so grateful this kind old man had saved her brother from death. The other half ached with a jealous sorrow that she had not been part of any of those days. "Why did you never tell anyone?" she asked. "Why keep it a secret from my people?" "For his safety," Elan said. "If your people knew we had a white boy, what would they think? They would not think he was saved. They would think he was stolen. They would use it as a reason to attack us, to take him back by force. They would see him as a prize, not a person. And for my people, some were angry that day. Some wanted no survivors. If they knew I spared a settler child, they might have seen it as a betrayal. The secret was a blanket that kept everyone warm. It kept peace." "It was a lie," Sarah whispered. "It was a story that allowed a boy to live and two peoples to avoid more war," Elan said. "But now the story is breaking." Taza, who had been sitting silently, spoke up. "Elder, the lie cannot hold. Joseph Briggs and the men from Willow Creek are coming. They have many guns. They will be here by tomorrow morning. They are coming to fight." Elan's shoulders sagged. He looked very old and very tired. "Because of the wounded scout you helped," he said to Sarah, not as an accusation, but as a fact. Sarah nodded. "They think Taza was a spy. They think your band is planning an attack. Joseph is using it to rally everyone. He wants to finish the war from 12 years ago." "And you came to warn us," Elan said. "I came to find my brother," Sarah said, her voice firm. "But I do not want him to die in a battle that starts because of me. I have to stop it." "How?" Elan asked. "You cannot stop men with guns who are full of hate." "I can tell them the truth," Sarah said, leaning forward. "I can tell Joseph that Charlie is alive and living here, that he was saved, not stolen, that the first attack was started by the settlers. It will change things." Elan shook his head slowly. "Child, you believe truth is a light that clears away darkness. Sometimes truth is a spark that lights a powder keg. Joseph does not want truth. He wants revenge. Your truth will not calm him. It will enrage him more. He will say we brainwashed your brother. He will say we must be destroyed to free him. He will use your truth as his final reason to attack." Sarah felt despair rising. "Then what do we do? We cannot just wait for them to come." Before Elan could answer, the hide door flap was thrown open. A young Apache man, breathing hard from running, hurried in. He spoke quickly to Elan in their language, his eyes wide with alarm. Elan listened, then translated for Sarah, his face grave. "Our scout has seen them. The men from your camp. They did not wait for morning. They are coming now. They will be here before the sun rises." Sarah stood up. How many? Many, Elan said. On horses, with rifles. He looked at Taza. You must rouse the warriors. Tell them to prepare, but to hold their arrows. Do not strike first. We will try to speak. Taza stood and left at once. Elan turned back to Sarah. You have brought the truth, and you have brought the war. Now we must see if they can live together. Come, it is time for you to see what your words have done. He led her out of the hut. The peaceful camp was now a place of quiet, urgent activity. Women were guiding children to hiding places among the rocks. Men were gathering weapons, their faces set and serious. The air was thick with fear, and there, near the central fire, Sarah saw Kovet. He was tying a leather guard around his wrist. He tested the string of his bow. His face was no longer confused or angry. It was the focused, determined face of a warrior ready to defend his home. Her brother was preparing to fight the people from her camp, to fight Joseph, to fight perhaps, to die. Sarah knew then what she had to do. She had to stand between them. No matter what Elan believed about sparks and powder kegs, she had to try. The night was bitterly cold and utterly still. No one in the Apache camp slept. Warriors stood in the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Women and children were hidden high in the rocks, looking down. Sarah stood next to Elder Elan near the central fire. Her eyes were fixed on the dark canyon entrance. Taza moved silently to join them. The scouts say they are less than an hour away. They have stopped to wait for first light. They will attack then. Elan nodded slowly. And Kovat? He is with the other young men on the west ridge. He is ready. He is eager. Taza's voice was heavy. He still does not understand why the white woman is here. He thinks she brought this trouble. She did, Elan said softly. And she did not. The trouble was already walking toward us. She just turned on a light so we could see it coming. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. I have to talk to him before they get here. I have to make him understand. Understand what? Elan asked. That the sister he never knew has brought an army to his home? That his whole life is a story he did not write? There is no understanding that in a few moments. There is only shock and pain. But he should hear it from me, Sarah insisted, her voice breaking. If you go to him now, you will distract him. His focus must be on staying alive in the next hour. Your words will make him unsure. In a fight, unsure is dead. Elan put a gentle hand on her arm. Your chance to speak to him will come after, if there is an after. The sky began to lighten from black to deep gray. Shapes became clearer. The trees, the rocks, the tense faces of the warriors. Sarah saw Kovat's silhouette on the ridge. He was looking out toward the desert, his bow in his hand. Then, a new sound cut the silence. The jingle of a bit, the snort of a horse. They were here. From the canyon entrance, figures on horseback emerged. 1, then 5, then 12. More followed on foot. Joseph Briggs rode at the front, his rifle across his saddle. The settlers spread out in a line facing the Apache camp. Their guns were ready. The Apache warriors stepped forward from their shadows, forming their own line. Bows were drawn, spears were held tight. The two groups stared at each other across 50 yards of open ground. Joseph stood up in his stirrups. His voice exploded in the quiet dawn. We come for the Apache who spied on Willow Creek. We come for the thief who stole one of our children. Hand them over and the rest of you can leave this place in peace. Elder Elan took a step forward. His voice did not boom. It was thin but carried on the cold air. There is no spy here. There is no thief. There is only a family. You are not welcome with guns in your hands. A family? Joseph laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. That's not a family. That's a pack of killers holding a white boy hostage. We see him right there. He pointed his rifle toward the ridge, toward Kovat. We're taking him home, Kovat shouted back, his young voice full of fire. I am home. You are the ones who are not welcome here. Leave now. Sarah's heart was hammering against her ribs. This was it. The two halves of her life were screaming at each other, seconds away from violence. Joseph raised his rifle, aiming at the Apache line. His men did the same. The sound of hammers cocking was a deadly chorus. Last chance, Joseph yelled. Sarah did not think. She just moved. She ran out from behind Elan, into the open space between the two lines. Her arms were spread wide. Sarah, no! Taza's shout came from behind her. Joseph, stop! She screamed, facing the settlers. Everyone, stop! Rifles wavered. The men were confused. They knew her. They saw the Miller orphan girl standing with the enemy. Joseph's face turned purple with rage. "Get out of the way, you foolish girl. They have poisoned your mind." "They have told me the truth," Sarah shouted back, her voice trembling but loud. "And you need to hear it. All of you need to hear it." She turned to look at the Apache line, at Kovet on the ridge. "And you need to hear it too." She stood alone in the middle, the cold morning wind whipping her dress. Every eye was on her. Every gun and every arrow was pointed directly or indirectly at her heart. "The story is wrong," she began, her words clear in the freezing air. "The first attack 12 years ago, it was not the Apache. The first attack 12 years ago, it was not the Apache." Sarah's voice carried across the frozen ground. A group of settlers, men from many camps, found a peaceful Apache hunting party. The hunters had deer for their families. The settlers wanted what they had. They wanted the land. They shot them all. They killed the Apache chief's son. That was the first strike. A murmur went through the settlers. Some men shook their heads. Others looked at the ground, uneasy. "Lies," Joseph shouted, but his voice lacked its full force. "It is not a lie," Taza said, stepping out to stand beside Sarah. He faced the people of Willow Creek. "I was a boy hiding in the rocks. I saw my uncle fall. I saw the men with your hats and your coats do the killing. 4 days later, our warriors attacked the homesteads. It was a retaliation. It was a grief-stricken act of war. Sarah's family died in that war. They were not killed by savages. They were killed in a fight that your people started." The words hung in the air. The story was so different, it took a moment to settle. Sarah turned now, looking up at the ridge where Kovet stood. And on that day, an Apache elder found a little boy hiding under a wagon. A boy who was crying for his mother and father. The elder's name is Elon. She pointed to the old man. He did not see an enemy. He saw a child. He picked him up. He saved him. He brought him here and raised him as his own grandson. That boy is right there. Every head turned to look at Kovet. He lowered his bow slightly, his face a mask of confusion and anger. "His name is not Kovet," Sarah said, her voice cracking with emotion. "His name is Charlie Miller. He is my brother." A gasp went up from the settlers. They stared at the young Apache warrior with new eyes, looking for the lost boy. "No," Kovet said, the word more a plea than a denial. He looked at Elder Elon. "Grandfather, tell them this is not true." Elon walked forward slowly until he stood in the open with Sarah and Taza. He looked up at the young man he loved. "It is true, my son. I found you on that terrible day. Your family was gone. Your world was gone. I gave you a new world. I gave you a new name. But your first name was Charlie." Kovat's bow fell from his hands, clattering on the rocks. He stared at Elon, then at Sarah. The truth was a physical blow. He staggered back a step. Joseph Briggs watched this. He saw the pain on the old man's face. He saw the shock on the young warrior's face. He saw the tears on Sarah's face. The rigid anger in his own chest began to splinter. "My father died in that raid," Joseph said, his voice suddenly quieter. "I was told he was murdered by mindless animals." "My uncle died in the first attack," Taza responded, holding Joseph's gaze. "I was told he was murdered by greedy men who saw no humanity in us. We have both been carrying the same pain. We have just been pointing it in different directions." Joseph was silent for a long time. He looked at his men, their rifles still raised but their faces now full of doubt and shame. He looked at the Apache warriors, their bows still drawn, protecting their homes and families. He looked at Sarah standing between them all, brave and heartbroken. He let out a long, heavy breath. The fight seemed to drain out of him. He lowered his rifle. "Put your guns down," he said to his men, not as a shout, but as a tired order. One by one, the settlers lowered their weapons. On the ridge, Kovet stared at his hands, the hands of a hunter, an Apache. Now they were the hands of a boy named Charlie. He looked at Sarah, really looked at her. He saw her hazel eyes, so full of sorrow and hope. He saw something familiar in her face, something that echoed in a deep, forgotten part of himself. He did not pick up his bow. He walked down the ridge slowly until he stood before Sarah. He searched her face. "You are my sister?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I am," Sarah said, a fresh wave of tears falling. "I thought you were dead for 12 years. I mourned you every day. Kovet looked at Elan, his grandfather, who was not his grandfather. The love in the old man's eyes was still there, real and unwavering. You loved me, Kovet said to him. You saved me. I did, Elan said. And I love you still. That has not changed. Only the story has changed. Joseph cleared his throat, awkward in the silence. We will go, he said. There will be no fight here today. He mounted his horse but paused, looking at Sarah. You have your brother back, Sarah. I hope it heals something. He turned his horse and led the men back into the canyon. The sound of their leaving was the only sound in the valley. Sarah and Kovet stood facing each other, a lifetime of separation between them. The sun was fully up now, warming the cold ground. I do not know you, Kovet said honestly. I do not know you either, Sarah replied, but I would like to. He nodded slowly, a world of confusion still in his gray eyes. My name is Kovet, he said. Then he added softly, but I was once called Charlie. Sarah reached out tentatively and took his hand. It was calloused and strong. It was her brother's hand. It is a long road home, Charlie, she said. I do not know where home is, he answered. We can find out, she said, together. And for the first time, with the sunrise on their faces and a hard peace settled around them, they began.